And listen, thank you for joining us on this particular conversation. I'm speaking to Keith Ellis, and in a moment, we're going to tell you why you should stay and listen and observe and take action on what's going to come out on this particular show. Keith, welcome and welcome to the Business and Wealth Show.
Thanks, Mac. Delighted to be here.
Excellent. Listen, based on your expertise, why should anyone stay and listen to what we're going to be speaking about today?
Because I'm going to show people how to achieve the impossible in their business and their life, and I'm going to show them how to make the impossible easy.
Yeah, and Keith has been doing this for years because he helps successful entrepreneurs achieve impossible goals. You've thought it's not you can't do it, it can't be done. Well, you have a superpower inside of you. Keith's job is to unleash that superpower and you play from there. So Keith, fantastic. Listen, Keith, often on these calls, I like to ask our guests, the key question is, what was your entrepreneurial journey like? How did you start your entrepreneurial journey? What happened? Were you always an entrepreneur? Were you, were you working somewhere and decided to transition? What's the story?
Well, I'm one of those people who got into I got into selling at a very early age. I had to work my way through college, and selling was a way that worked. And I enjoy people, and I enjoy selling sort of. I
Right.
never figured out how to sell people what they didn't want, and I never wanted a job like that. So
Mm,
I decided I wanted to sell people what they wanted. And it sounds easy, right?
yeah.
Even that wasn't easy, but it was a lot more fun. So I got into the technology world because I was in sales, and I kept working for small companies
Okay.
but as an employee for small companies. And
Mm,
then I started working for companies as a shareholder. I was actually part of the management team, and then I founded some companies. So I was at one level always an entrepreneur, meaning I was always working for entrepreneurs in an entrepreneurial environment.
mm,
And I was always in sales, which meant that if I didn't do my job, I wouldn't eat. My family wouldn't eat. And
right.
that's really the heart of what entrepreneurship's about, right? If you leave a job in the corporate world, you you suddenly realize there's nobody sending me a paycheck anymore. I
There
have
you
to
go.
actually perform, right?
There you go.
So after all that I just described to you, I ended up working for a small company, creating this team for them in a new market that they had never been in before. And they were bought by LinkedIn.
Oh, wow.
So now I'm with a big company, which was never my career path, and I was going to leave, and they made it too interesting for me to leave.
Okay.
They
Yeah.
made it worth my while, shall we say? And then LinkedIn was bought by Microsoft. So
Yes.
now I'm part of. At that time, it was the most valuable company on the planet. Somehow I'm a part of this company, of 150,000 people. Never my plan, never what I was comfortable doing. But again, they made me an offer I couldn't refuse. So I stayed there for a while and finally just said, this has been a great run. I love it. But there's so much in my head. And I was writing books along the way, personal development books about goal setting and things. And I
Wow.
said, I need to create, and I was also doing coaching as well on the side. I said, I need to make this my full-time business. So I left the technology world, left the Microsoft LinkedIn world, and started my own company. This is about 5 years ago, and have been doing this full time since then. So that's the journey. It was always sort of in my mind entrepreneurial, and then suddenly I'm working for these huge companies. It was almost laughable,
Great.
but I learned a lot from them. So it was a good experience.
What's the current thing that you do now, and how do you add value to the marketplace?
Okay, so I've just brought out a book called "How to Make the Impossible Easy: The Astonishing Secret of the 10x Superpower," and I have a coaching program that is also brand new called the Superpower Coaching Program. And what that does is and I mean this literally because people think I'm being metaphorical here. It helps entrepreneurs because I focus on entrepreneurs.
Mm,
It helps entrepreneurs achieve impossible goals.
Right.
And the immediate sort of the awareness is, okay, so that's in their business. It helps them succeed in their business, and that's true. If you're not trying to do impossible things in your business, you're probably not doing what you could be doing, right?
Yeah.
But it also applies to your life. And once you start achieving amazing things in one part of your life, two things happen. One, it changes your whole life. It transforms your whole life. And two, you realize, hey, what enabled me to 10x my business, to take my business literally to grow the revenue and the impact on the world by 1,000%. I can do that in relationships. I can do that with my health. I can do that in my community work. So suddenly you have this new skill set, this new series of, you mentioned this earlier in our conversation, frameworks, mindsets. There are lots of ways to look at this, but really it's about how you think. And what I coach people to do, the value I add to the marketplace, is to focus on embracing the impossible.
Wow. Embrace. So when you profess that and you tell people about that, embracing the impossible, and you worked with countless number of clients, what's the initial reaction? Oh, Keith's going to make me this or that. What do you mean impossible? What does that look like in practicality in terms of maybe you had someone you worked with, they didn't think it was possible. You took them through your process and suddenly, boom. Oh, I didn't realize I could do that.
Yep. Yep. Well, so you hit the nail on the head. In fact, the book starts with this. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. The book starts with this as its theme. It introduces this because I do get that pushback a lot. And the pushback I get most often is, okay, so I want to go to Mars. You saying I can go to Mars? And there are two types of impossible. Right. There's what's impossible in the physical universe, right? You can't go faster than the speed of light. You can't be in two places at the same time. Of course, now quantum mechanics is telling us maybe those things aren't impossible either. Mm-hmm. Well, whatever. But I don't talk about that stuff. That's not the frame of reference I'm using. I'm talking about what's between your ears. I'm talking about what you as an entrepreneur think is impossible for you.
Right.
And the way I bring that out, the way I introduce that is impossible is an opinion. It's not a fact, but we treat it like it's a fact. This is actually a famous quote that was attributed to Muhammad Ali about 30 years ago. He didn't say it. It was part of an advertising campaign that he was part of. It was written by the ad agency, but I've always loved it. Impossible is not a fact. It's an opinion. Wow. And we have these opinions of what we think is impossible. And yet, in our lives, each of us has this whole succession of things where we've accomplished the impossible. We just didn't give ourselves credit for it. So I give people examples. I say, okay, when you were 9, 10, 12 months old, you were crawling around the rug and you kept trying to walk.
Right.
You were physically incapable of walking. It was impossible. You were emotionally incapable, and you were psychologically incapable. But you kept trying to do it. And what happened? You learned how to walk. Then what happened? You learned how to run. And any parent knows that the whole world changes once the kids start running, right?
Oh, yeah.
But you took something that was utterly impossible and you made it easy. And people say, okay, yeah, that's a one-off. That's when you're a kid. That doesn't count. Okay, how about when you learn to talk? You learn to walk. You learn to read. You learn to write. You learn to ride a bike. You learn to drive a car. These are all things that at one point in your life seemed impossible to you. You believed that they were beyond you, which is what I mean by impossible. When you say something's impossible, you're saying, I'm incapable of that. And what I'm saying to push back is I'm saying, I get it. I'm not arguing with that. What if you became more capable? And when I ask people that, their mind goes, I never occurred to me before. And then they realize I've done that my whole life. I couldn't do this, and then suddenly I could do it. I added capabilities. So what I do is teach people how to add the capabilities they need in their lives to achieve what they think they can't achieve. And then suddenly when they add capabilities, they can achieve it. And it's like magic. And it happens over and over and over again. It's easy to prove, it's easy to demonstrate, but you got to get through that barrier, which is, I think it's impossible.
How do you do that then? Because clearly, I think you hinted it earlier on. It starts in the mind. It starts in the mindset. If you there is a famous saying we all know that if you think whether you think you can or you can't, you are right. I think that was Henry Ford, right?
Yep, yep,
So, and there have been countless human beings who have done what is seemingly impossible, right? And once they've created it or done it, people think, wow, I didn't think that was possible,
right.
right? Running the however is it 4 minute mile or
Yep,
Elon Musk working on getting human beings to Mars, right? And maybe one day he figures it out. That
yep,
again, that's like nobody else is stretching their mind that far out. Think, well, I want to get human beings to Mars. So for our listeners here, do you have some kind of framework or some kind of methodology that says, look, this is how, if you want to 10x your results or you want to grow exponentially, here's some ideas or this is a framework that you can use to do that.
yes, yes, yeah. And it starts with sometimes I get described as a motivational speaker when I do, speaking in front of groups, and I have to correct people and say I have no idea how to motivate people. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
It's like I told you earlier. I don't know how to sell something that people don't want. I've never figured that out.
Mm, mm.
And it's much easier to sell somebody something they want. Well, it's much easier when you're coaching somebody to help them achieve what they want to achieve. I have no idea how to make them want something that they don't want. But that's where it starts. You have to figure out what it is you want. And that's where this impossible framework is super useful. When people start, typically a coaching session with me is if we start talking about what this person wants, how they envision the next few years of their life. And very often there's nothing there.
Right.
That's part of the problem. They're a successful business person because I tend to work with successful entrepreneurs for the simple reason that I'm not cheap
Yeah.
and they need to be able to write a check without taking food off the table for their family, right? It's just simple math. But
Absolutely.
but they're at the point where they've accomplished something in their business. The business has taken over their life.
Yes.
And they started their business because they wanted something. They wanted freedom.
Mm,
And
mm.
now they have no freedom. They've never worked harder in their life. But they love their business and they want it to grow. And what I do is say, okay, I can help you grow your business 10 times on one condition. You have to work less. Well,
Okay.
that totally blows their mind because that's the
Yeah.
opposite of everything they've believed, everything they've been taught. But
That's
it's the
right.
start of this idea of wrapping your brain around what I mean by impossible. So if you think about something you want and something you really want so much you do anything to get it, but you think it's impossible, I just want you to commit to it anyway, even though you think it's impossible. That's the magic, that's the secret of this whole thing. And if you can't think of something you want that badly, then I ask it the question differently. I use my 4 of the most powerful words I've ever heard in the English language, and I add them to a question. So if I would ask you, what is it you want so much that you'd do anything to get it, right?
Right.
And you get all kinds of stuff. Sometimes you get very clear answers. Sometimes I have no idea, right? That's the answer. So I say, okay, let's change the question. I add these 4 words to it. If anything were possible,
Mm.
what do you want so much that you do anything to get it? Now suddenly they're going, oh, I want this, I want that, I want to, and what was holding them back is this idea, I can't do this, so why even think about it? Why waste my time? Why share it with this coach that I'm paying all this money to? It makes no sense, right? But then once you unlock that and you get around that, I'm not trying to convince them. This is really the thing that's different about what I do, I think, from other high performance coaches. I'm not trying to convince somebody that something is possible. If you think it's impossible, I'm saying, yep, I agree with you. If you believe it's impossible for you, you are 100% right. And then I do an end run. I say, now, if it were possible, would you commit to it? And now this is classic. And I don't mean to dive into psychobabble here, but it's classic cognitive dissonance. Their brain is holding two things that don't make sense, and something has to resolve. And what resolves is, yeah, I'd commit to it. I really want it that much. Now we've got something, and now we start examining how you can actually accomplish that. And the cool thing is, once you commit to something that you know is impossible,
yeah,
your brain says, "Oh, I guess he's serious about this."
okay.
And now I got to figure out how to do it. So your brain, you've essentially enlisted your brain, because up to this point, your brain's saying, "No, you can't do that. You can't do it. Leave me alone. You can't do that."
Right.
And
right.
I'm not saying you're wrong. It's possible. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just doing an end run, saying, "Okay, if you could do it, would you commit to it?" Yeah. Bingo.
Wow.
Now you are going to make the impossible possible.
Often when I speak around the world on stages, and people say, when I bring something out and they think, like you said, it's impossible. What creates that resistance for them in their mind? Is that a childhood conditioning? Is that a limiting belief? Is that a self-imposed self-limiting belief? And why is it that some people just think big and go for the big things? Is it nature? Is it nurture? I wonder sometimes that there are some people I come across who have huge capabilities. They have a genius inside of them but it takes someone like you, Keith, to come along and say, actually, do you know what? This could be you if you want it bad enough.
Yeah.
So my question, I suppose, is what causes that resistance, and what keeps people playing a small game rather than playing the impossible game, if you like?
Yep. Oh, I like that. I'm going to steal the impossible game from you. There's got to be a product in there somewhere. I really like what you said about where, or the frame of the question. Where does this come from? And I don't pretend to know the answer. I suspect it's all the things, and it's different for different people. But I especially like what you said about the genius within, because I've never met anybody who didn't have a genius within.
True.
But I've met tons of people. Probably 99% of the people I've met in my life are not willing to go where that genius can take them. And there you get into what's causing the limitation. I'll give you an example. This is just one piece of the puzzle that you were talking about. Imagine you're in second grade,
Yeah.
first form, whatever you want to call it in your world, right? You're a kid, and people are drawing. Your classmates are drawing, and somebody draws a cow, and you try to draw a cow, and you suck. It looks like an ashtray or something, right? There's nothing, no resemblance to a cow. So what you take away from that is, I have no talent to draw. I have no creativity. And then you repeat that, because the next time you're in a position to do that, your first reaction is, "Oh, I can't do that." Right? I have no creativity. I can't draw. And it happens over and over and over again. So we're telling ourselves that from a very early age because of something that we experienced where we in fact couldn't do it. We were incapable of doing it. So we took that incapacity for that moment, and we defined ourselves by it. Right? So all this stuff we've been talking about, you learn to walk, you learn to talk, you learn to read, you learn to write, all this stuff. You forget all that, all of which started with incapacity. You forget all that, and you just take this little moment and you say, "Oh, I define myself as somebody who's incapable of doing this." And you go through the rest of your life like that. And it gets pretty hardwired. So that's why I don't try to take that head on. I don't try to convince somebody they're creative. But one of my favorite lines is when somebody says, I have no imagination. I always say, "Do you realize that's an active imagination?" And they go, right?
Yeah,
because they've got themselves in this walled prison, and by God, they're not going to let themselves out. So this impossibility framework, if you will, this impossibility game, which is a great phrase, essentially lets you conditionally think beyond your prison. Okay, well, if anything were possible, yeah, I would really want that. I mean, do you want it enough to make it happen? Yeah, but it's impossible. Okay, but do you want it enough to make it happen? Yes. Okay, then commit to it. I'm committed to it. And then your mind starts going, oh, that just changed the whole game. now I need to be enlisted in how to solve this problem. And suddenly the most powerful computer on the planet, which is the one between your ears,
Yeah.
is working for you. And it's a beautiful thing. I spend, as you do, I'm sure, lots of time these days working with artificial intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
I'm fascinated with it. I come out of the technology world, so I'm a geek anyway. But the more I work with artificial intelligence, the more I realize that what makes it work to get AI to do anything of value for you, you have to give it the right prompt.
Right.
It's called prompt engineering. That's a whole job description now. It's a whole new, business classification. Prompt engineering. If you give AI good prompts, you get amazing results, whether it's, writing text for you or creating videos or solving quantum equations, whatever it is. It's all about the prompt. And I realize that's what I've been teaching people my entire career.
Right.
I'm in the business of teaching people how to prompt human intelligence. And the way to make the most, if you want to know the secret to understanding how to use artificial intelligence and how to survive in a world that is being overrun by AI, learn how to prompt human intelligence, because it's still the biggest brain there is on the planet. It's still the most powerful brain. I don't know if it's going to stay that way, but it is now. And I teach people how to, it really comes down to something this simple. And I wrote a book about this too called Magic Questions. I teach people how to ask themselves exactly the right question in exactly the right way at precisely the right time. If you do that, you unlock this incredible genius that you have between your ears, even if you've never called it that, even if you've never thought yourself creative or intelligent or anything. You unlock it if you ask yourself the right questions.
Where did your wisdom, because it is wisdom, come from? Is it through, sometimes I like to observe. Not sometimes, often I observe, and think some things are amazing. Was it observational, watching other human beings, or was it through trial and error, or was it nurtured into you by your parents, or was it through the various books and education you've been through? Because you think differently than other coaches, thereby you're behaving differently and you're working with your clients in a very unconventional way, right? So
Yes, totally.
yeah, where's
I want to bottle what you just said. Well, but it's a valid question. At some level, I just got lucky. Okay, that's the simple answer to this. But let me tell you how that luck came about. For some reason, and I don't really know the answer to this. I think it was probably because I was a fat kid, and people made fun of me, and nobody would have me on their teams to play games, and it was a terrible time. And then I got into high school, and I followed a brother who had been a wrestler for a year. I joined the wrestling team, and which was, by the way, I didn't have these terms in those days. I didn't understand the impossible game, but it was the impossible game. I was the last thing on earth, last person on earth who should have been a wrestler. I didn't have an aggressive bone in my body unless you tried to steal a French fry. I hated exercise. I ate junk food. So I joined wrestling. It was impossible, but by God, I wanted to lose weight, and I did. And it changed. It totally transformed my life. So somewhere out of that experience, I didn't know this at the time, but from then on, I've been a total junkie for personal development. Something in that experience made me realize that if I take this and apply it to this, whatever my challenges in life are, cool things happen, right? But you have to think first. And so fast forward, so I started going to seminars and trainings from all kinds of people, from Ken Blanchard to Tony Robbins and on and on. And then about 30 years ago, I was taking a shower. I think I'd just been watching a movie, Aladdin, with with my family. I was taking a shower and I was thinking, I hate setting goals. I was this guy studying how to achieve things in life. I knew you had to set goals, but I hated it because they handcuffed me. They made me feel trapped by my goal. Took all the spontaneity out of life. And I was in the shower and I was thinking, what I really need is a magic lamp to make my wishes come true. Wouldn't that be cool? And then I was like, I got hit by a bolt of lightning. I jumped out of the shower, almost slipped in a bar of soap. I always had a pad of paper and a pen near me. So I started writing down, dripping wet, I started writing down what became the magic lamp framework because I realized that we do have a magic lamp. It's goal setting. Yeah. Goal setting will get you anything you want if you follow a very simple process. And if you think of it in terms of making your wishes come true. I mean, it used to be, the alarm would go off. I'd roll over in bed and think, oh, today I'm going to work on my goals. Yippee, right? Didn't work for me. No. But then suddenly, from that moment forward, it was, today I'm going to make my wishes come true. Now, that got me out of bed. That got me juiced. And then I started thinking more and developing this model more and started teaching it. And I realized we are our own genie, right? Mm-hmm. And you think, well, yeah, but the cool thing about a genie is the genie does all the work. And I realized that's ass backwards because we need to do the work or we won't grow.
Absolutely.
Facing obstacles, overcoming things, doing these things is how we grow. And growth is what it's all about. That's the only reason to be alive. It's really the only reason we are alive, to grow. And if you stop growing, you die. We all know that, right? That's another popular saying. But I realized that I don't want to have a magic lamp like rubbing a genie. I want to be my own genie, but I need to know how to do that. So I wrote a book about it. It went international. It was super successful. I tried to buy that book back from the publisher. It's a huge publisher, Random House. I tried to buy it back a couple of years ago, and they said, no, it's still selling. Because I wanted to bring it under my own umbrella, my own marketing efforts. And they said, no, we can't. I'm sorry. It's still doing well. It's like, I guess that's good. But that book, I taught that and lived that for years. And then I realized there was something missing. I was making incremental progress. And that was great. It was working. I was doing what I was teaching. It was working. But I realized I'm at a place in my life where I want more than incremental progress. I want extraordinary. And I didn't know how to do it. And that freaked me out because I was a success junkie and I didn't know how to go extraordinary. So then I started thinking, went back into the research and training and all this other stuff. And I realized that what's missing from my world was an understanding of what was in all the other success experts' worlds, from Socrates to Tony Robbins to Dan Sullivan. It all comes down to the way they ask certain questions.
Yes.
And I began to call them magic questions, and this became a book. And I created this process, or identified this process, for how to ask the right question in the right way at the right time. And that was incredible. Changed my life profoundly. Successful book. And then I realized there's still something missing. And then it hit me that I'm selling myself short because I've never set really high goals because I never wanted to be disappointed. That's how I grew up, right? I can still hear the voices of adults in my head. Don't expect too much, right? You won't get disappointed. And it's like, that's crap. That's the wrong message. True. And what if I embrace the impossible? Then I started doing research on that, and I found out there's this whole way the brain works that if you focus on something that is beyond you, your brain suddenly focuses in a way that was never able to focus before. Suddenly all the distraction, all the waste of time that where you've been spending most of your time, the 80-20 rule kind of stuff, the 80% just disappears and your brain goes, bang, he wants the impossible, this is the only way to get it. And that was life-changing for me, and that became the latest book. So, long story, but you asked the question.
Absolutely. I mean,
that's where that thinking came from.
Fascinating. And the latest book is the 10x Superpower. Is that the one?
Well, the title of the book is How to Make the Impossible Easy.
How to Make the Impossible
Subtitle, The Astonishing Secret of the 10x Superpower.
Fantastic.
Astonishing Secret of the 10x Superpower. Yep.
Amazing. I mean, I mean, we could talk for a long time here, and you've got great stories and the way you've gone about differentiating yourself really in a world where there's so many coaches and do this and do this. And I love what you're doing, which is essentially helping people to rise into the impossible and play that game. Because at the end of our life, what has it been? And you mentioned it's all about growing. And if you can look back and you have grown into the human being you're supposed to be. And the unfortunate thing is, too many people that I come across, maybe you come across as well, have settled for mediocrity. And mediocrity is not the game you are playing.
Yep.
Love it. Listen, for those who want to learn more from you or reach out to you, Keith, what is the best way for them to do that or connect with you?
They can go to my website, which is keithellis.com, keithellis.com. And there's a little movie there, because it's a video world, right? There's a
Yeah.
little movie there that takes them through the problem I solve, which is what you and I have been talking about, which is how to wrap your brain around the impossible. And if they are interested in working with me, there's also a little form they can fill out, and we can see where that goes.
Superb.
And either way, they get an excerpt, a really cool excerpt from my new book. The book is broken into 10 breakthroughs.
Mhm.
And they get the first 3 breakthroughs, which are the ones that really talk about how to make the impossible easy. And they get I'll give them a PDF copy of that for free if they sign in. So,
Superb. So that's keithellis.com, did we say?
yep.
We will add it to the show notes of this show as well, so it's easy to click. Hey Keith, again, thank you so much for adding so much value and being here and giving us all your wisdom and knowledge. And I think, not even think, I believe in my heart, people listening to what you just said, maybe just had their eyes and mind open in terms of, what is my impossible? And they can stand up straight and thinking, wow, maybe that thing that I've been putting off, this is the year, 2025, I need to step into that. Let me
Yep.
reach out to Keith and let's see how we can make that happen. Thank you
Well,
again.
that would be great. I'm in this for the same reason you're in this.
Yeah,
Wouldn't it be great to help people make their dreams come true?
that's
Right?
what that's why I do it, and I can see that's why you do it as well.
Yep.
Thank you
Yep.
again, Keith. Much appreciated.
Thanks, Mac.
Now, for those of you listening in, remember to like, share, remember to make comments as well. What did you learn from Keith here? What was something? Did you get a aha, a light bulb, a eureka moment, something that brought you to life? Just put it in there, however small, however big. And also, we know the algorithm loves engagement. So give us some emojis, make some comments. You know what to do. Follow, subscribe, depending on which channel you're on. Until we speak again, take care. And remember, build your business not just for income, but build your business for wealth in terms of your health, your lifestyle, and your family and the friends that you want to associate with. Take care until next time. Bye for now.